My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a podcast where we dive deep into the world of songwriting and music. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and today we have a very exciting guest for you. Our guest on the podcast today is none other than the incredibly talented Sarah Tudzin, who is the force behind the indie rock project Illuminati Hotties. Later this week, Sarah is set to release the highly anticipated third studio record under the band name, which is titled Power. This marks the first Hotties album in over 3 years, a period that has seen Sarah navigate through some personal highs and lows, including the loss of a family member, finding new love, and even winning some Grammy Awards with boygenius. The result is Power, an album that stands out as one of the best power pop/indie rock records of this year. Now, in today's episode, we sit down with Sarah to dive deep into the creation of Power and learn about how she found the time to write it amidst everything else going on in her life. We also explore her early introduction to music, her journey into production, and discuss some of our favourite moments on the record, along with how those songs are expected to translate into a live performance. We want to extend a heartfelt thanks to Dave for his help with today's episode. Don't forget to pre-order the new Illuminati Hotties album, Power. You'll find all the details within today's show notes. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast as well and check out our website for more great content and previous guests. Now let's dive into it. Here is our conversation with Sarah Tudzin of Illuminati Hotties. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours from Illuminati Hotties. It is Sarah Tudzin. Sarah, hello. How are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast to chat to us today. It's a very exciting time for you this week. There's a brand new record out for you.
Oh, yeah. It feels good.
How are you around this is the third record from the Illuminati Hotties project. How are you with release week and that kind of mix of emotions that I imagine is going on with putting out new music?
Yeah, I mean, release week is torture. It's like such a bizarre place between some people have heard the songs, but nobody's like really heard all of them, but they're about to. And so, I just am sort of like excited to get it in everyone's hands. And at that point, it'll be taking on its own life.
I absolutely love that. Is there ever any nerves? Again, this is not the first rodeo. Is there ever any nerves kind of around putting out records, or is it just the fact of, as you said, once it's in people's hands, it's kind of out of the control of yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I feel nerves in that it's just an unknown, and I feel like I want this record to do well because I want to be able to stay on tour and keep making records. And in that way, I guess I feel a little nervous, but I'm also not nervous because I think it's just like I feel mostly positivity and excitement about being able to share music again with people.
100%. Well, look, I have a feeling that you'll be able to be on tour for a while with this record. It is a stunning record. The third record from the band is called Power. It's coming out later this week. I wonder for you, is this the longest? Having a quick look, was it the longest between drinks for Illuminati Hotties in terms of like the time taken between releasing records?
I think so, honestly. Yeah, because we had that mixtape Free IH that sort of came out in between albums. And then Let Me Do One More came out quickly after that. So yeah, this will probably be the longest amount of time. I've put out some singles along the way. but not like a full comprehensive record like this.
Well, look, I'm super glad that we've got this record, and I know that you weren't necessarily just lazing around for those few years, not doing anything. I want to kind of touch on that in a little bit as well. But
For sure.
I wanted to, I guess, start at the start of this record. I know for some people who aren't aware, you also are a producer of music for a number of bands that people might be aware of. This album was maybe written kind of around that other job. From my understanding is that it started as just little bits and pieces in the morning when not kind of focusing mainly on your project.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have to have a day job. I'm lucky that my day job is also music. So I can stay creating and stay working on music, even if it's not Hottie stuff specifically. And yeah, so like if I'm not working with other bands or making other people's records, then I'm able to dedicate time to my stuff. And usually over the course of the year, every year, I've managed to set aside a bit of time for my own. And the more records I make, sort of the more I'm realizing it's important to treat it as if I was being hired to produce another band, basically, because it also needed the time to sort of breathe and ruminate. And not only was I obviously writing it, but then also had to take time to put it into the studio and track instruments and, do all the things that producing a record takes. And yeah, there was a lot of stuff happening around that. So I had to be very diligent about making sure I left time for Illuminati Hotties.
I absolutely love that. For you, it has been, like, as we've said, a few years between the records, and I know that there was enough going on to kind of inspire the record, and whether that be for the better or for the worse. I know that, and we don't have to go into the details of, life itself, but it seems that this record kind of is a reflection of that. It's not a upbeat love record. It's not a fast-paced angry record. It seems to be a record that, and I think Power is almost like a perfect title for it, is this kind of beautiful complexity of life, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, there was a wide range of emotion happening that sort of grew deeper in both directions, positive and negative. And I was really feeling that sort of tear in my life. And also, yeah, I mean, Power is sort of, encapsulating all of that and the weight of everything in a way.
Was there any mission statement when you started writing this record that you kind of wanted to encapsulate all of that? Was it that you didn't necessarily want to be held down to one kind of specific idea for it? Was that, I guess, intentional when you went into to building the record?
Not really. I was trying to challenge myself to start building the record from the top down like that. And I have always sort of wanted to do a conceptual record where everything points to this universe. But I was pretty in various states of disrepair over the course of making it. And the only thing I could do really was to keep writing. And so sort of despite my best efforts, once I looked back at the large collection of demos I was going into the studio with, I was seeing the threads between them all. And that was one of the Power was sort of a force that was woven through every song, whether it was in a way of feeling strong in our power or feeling oppressed by power or feeling out of control with sort of an unknown or celestial power or something. But yeah, it just kept showing up over and over again in the songs, and it kind of immediately became a theme.
I absolutely love that. We've spoken to a number of songwriters on this podcast in relation to how sometimes it's not necessarily conscious, maybe what you're thinking or how you're feeling towards something, and then it's only after you have numerous 20, 30 demos that you kind of can see a through line of your own life. It's a bit of a weird experience, I imagine, to be oh, that's what I'm going through. That's what I am kind of experiencing.
Yeah, it's super weird, especially if you're not trying to face reality. In the case that that's what was happening to me. But when I was forced to listen back and really start to take a look at like how these songs were coming together, I was forced also to hold a mirror up to my own life.
There are some beautifully introspective songs on this record, and don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of like poppy, like jangly indie punky pop kind of songs on this record as well, which I know like Hotties fans will obviously love. But there was one or two really like lovely intimate moments on this record as well. I was hoping I might be a little bit indulgent and ask about my favorite track on the record, which was You Are Not Who You Were, which is I think near the tail end of the record. But I kept coming back to that track time and time again as I was listening to the record, and I was wondering whether you might be able to share, I guess, where that song came from or the creation of it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think like sort of as I had started to, I guess just like sort of right before my mom passed away, I went through a breakup and I felt that was like the lowest that it could be, like I felt sort of more upset about that than I had anything than anything else in my life at the time. And then sort of after my mom passed away and my family went through a lot of stuff, like I realized that like the depth is so much, like there was such a deeper rock bottom than I could have possibly imagined. And it sort of made everything else feel extremely trivial. And which was, one of like the only good things, I guess, to come out of experiencing that is you sort of realize like what really matters. And in the case of like this breakup, it was like a blip in my history as a human. And I was able to sort of take a look at it from a new lens and write that sort of like creeping, weird tune about it. And just sort of feel like that was like, I just kind of like felt everything vanish after that. Once that song was written, I was like, this is about a person who like not only wasn't showing up for me, but also was being deceptive. And the betrayal of all that felt very heavy. But then in the context of the record, it sort of becomes a little bit of like a circus tune or something, which is like how the production sort of was wrapped around it.
That's thank you very much for sharing that. I can imagine that obviously with such serious subject matter, it is not a difficult thing, but I imagine it's a challenging thing to kind of then put into a song. And again, as we discussed at the top, share with people and put it out into the world. So thank you very much for sharing that. I was wondering, Sarah, whether you might be able to, I guess, tell us where you got your start in music and what originally brought you to songwriting.
Yeah, well, like ever since I was a little kid, I begged my parents to let me do piano lessons as a very young child for some reason. And I wasn't very good at sports. And I was like, I just wanted to, as kids are sort of like trying to figure out who they were. I really got obsessed with that for some reason. And so I took lessons for a while, and then I started playing drums around middle school. And then that took me sort of like all the way through high school, through college. I was a drummer, and I really was writing songs all along. And I sort of was like, I don't think I want to be like a drummer in a band. And at the time I was like, you can either be in a band or you can manage a band. Like I didn't really know anything about the music industry. I didn't sort of like, I wasn't really like aware of like my own creativity or where I wanted to put it, other than just having written a few things and like, kind of just like wanting to sort of be involved with a band. But, it was just like sort of all these things floating around that when I got to college, all of a sudden I had access to like studio spaces and gear and like all this stuff that I had no idea was like such a huge part of the creative process. And like everything kind of just fell into place in a way where I was like, okay, awesome. Like this way I can be creative. I can like play all the instruments I want to play. I can be a writer and also like shape albums in like a way that I never sort of like knew you could do before that. So I guess I was just sort of like obsessed with music all along. And with listening to music and playing. But what got me started sort of like at a professional level was realizing that there was this creative role of like producer and engineer on every record.
Is that what then, I guess, drove both sides of your creative project? The fact that you've got Hotties as the band, but then you've also got the Grammy Award-winning producer. Congratulations for that. I think it was earlier this year.
Earlier this year.
Congratulations on that. But yeah, becoming like a Grammy-winning producer for bands like boygenius and Ways Blood and everything else. Is that kind of how those two paths kind of almost coexisted at the same time?
Yeah, like I sort of was writing music all along, and at some point I was like, like if I took these songs that I've been writing and make a record, then perhaps I could convince a few bands to jump in the studio with me if I have a thing that's like, I produced this, like if you want to like record your band or sound like this, like, or whatever, like it was a little bit of a calling card. And then I started playing out a lot more and, fell in love with that and got really busy with touring. So like sort of both things were happening and continue to happen in sort of ebbs and flows over the course of the years of my life. But yeah, it's interesting, I guess, to like have the band project as this like also a producer project, and a way to just like excise demons and like, expound some energy on stage.
It's very cool though that you've got both kind of in your back pocket. I imagine that there are times where you can kind of I guess relate to both in terms of if you've got certain artists in the studio, you're able to have that relatability from the artist side of your own project as well. And then obviously if you're your own artist project and someone else is producing, that there's that element of that you can kind of go, well, no, I know this or I know that. And so, yeah, I absolutely love the fact that Hotties has this ability to, have this beautifully produced record that is coming out in terms of power. For yourself, Sarah, would love to know, touring with this record, I imagine that there's going to be quite a few standout moments from this record. For you, is there any song that you're looking forward to debuting live when taking this out onto the road?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many tunes that we played a couple of them just kind of to try them out. But there's so many that we haven't played. I kind of feel like Falling in Love with Somebody Better is going to go off live. Like it feels good to play. And it's like, it does kind of like call back to like an OG Illuminati Hotties energy, but it has more depth emotionally. And I think it's like a bit more of like a pop vibe in the way of like Fountains of Wayne or, bands like that I admire so deeply. And I feel like the songs that feel good as a rock band, like will feel good on stage,
Sometimes it is as simple as that. If it feels good, on record, it's going to be the same in that live arena. It might be a bit of an obvious question. Can we maybe expect to see you down here in Australia in support of the record at some point, maybe next year?
God, I really hope so. I've tried to get out there, and it's definitely a challenge. I'm lucky I'm in LA. I feel like that's the closest possible place I could be while still living in the United States. Continental United States, I guess. But I hope I can get out there. I kind of feel like an Australian audience would be really excited about this music. And there's so many Australian artists that I love that come out here and have influenced my own music. So I hope I can come out there and play some shows.
Look, manifesting it now, putting it out into the universe to try and make it happen. I know that there's quite a lot of fans of the band here. So whenever that does happen, super excited to hopefully see. Lastly, Sarah, we usually ask, I guess, what they're currently listening to. Is there anything at the moment that's on high rotation for yourself?
I mean, there's so much. I feel like the unavoidable Brat Summer has landed in my household too. The Chapel Roan record as well is just, there's some amazing pop happening right now that like really, really like went to the level of pop that I don't feel like I've had the pleasure of experiencing in a long time. So I've loved that. I love the new Oso Oso record that just came out. That kind of like became instant heavy rotation for me. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Look, it is we were speaking to someone else recently, and it was just kind of like the summary of this year has been, it's the pop girly summer, which I think is a great way to there are worse summers to have. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Sarah, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, and congratulations on this brand new Illuminati Hotties record. It is called Power. It's out later this week, and we'll make sure that all the details are in the show notes for people to access, buy, stream, follow you on socials. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Simon. I appreciate it.
Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. That's what you'll feel with Boll & Branch's best-selling signature sheets in 100% organic cotton. In a recent customer survey, 96% replied that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. Start getting your best night's sleep in sheets that get softer and softer for years to come. Try their sheets with a 30-night guarantee. Plus, get 15% off your first order at bollandbranch.com, code BUTTERY. Exclusions apply. See site for details.